Well, that didn't take long. If you were just finding me or just finding the channel, the Kansas City Chiefs are the only thing that I talk about here, so consider hitting the like button and hitting the subscribe button to stick around. But just about 2 hours ago, I dropped a video about the rumors around DJ Humphries and the Kansas City Chiefs, and if I had just waited a little bit longer, I could have only released one video today, and it would have been about signing DJ Humphries, the offensive tackle formerly of the Arizona Cardinals. However, here we are. We will be talking about the Kansas City Chiefs adding to an already impressive roster. Let's just get right into it, because I said some of the things in that video that I should have said in this video, but we will get around to most of them also in this video. But here's where I want to start, because it is necessary, I think, to appreciate this part of who DJ Humphries is in order to get a better idea for what this signing could mean for the Kansas City Chiefs. This is from Bleacher Report, not recently, not as DJ Humphries became a free agent, but as DJ Humphries was entering the NFL draft, obviously quite some time ago. So some of this is going to be proven out or proven wrong, or he will have aged out, or he will have picked up little bits and pieces along the way. But the prospect who was DJ Humphries, Bleacher Report had this to say: strengths, a high upside athlete with impressive footwork, length, and timing. DJ Humphries is one of the few tackles in the 2015 class who is ready for action from day one on the left side. A 5-star prep player per 24/7 Sports, Humphries is an upside pick with finisher mentality. He blocks to the whistle and in the run and passing games. He is flexible, agile, and long enough to protect the edge. When beaten to the corner, Humphries is balanced and quick enough to recover and regain his ground. He's a smooth, quick, explosive mover, both to his left and the right. The Florida offense asked him, so now we have two Florida tackles, by the way. The Florida offense asked him pardon me, let me start over that sentence. The Florida offense asked him to down block often in the running game, and he dominated there. That is very true, and that carried on to the NFL level. His kick slide is fluid and balanced, and he follows it up with a well-timed strong punch. Despite not having great arm length, he plays long and uses his hands well to control blocks. Humphries was battle-tested in the SEC and consistently impressed. Now, I'm going to read the weaknesses here, but you will very much enjoy what comes at the conclusion of this little ditty here, even if the weaknesses will make you worry a little bit. If high athlete, low strength tackles like Luke Joeckel and Jake Matthews have scared you off that style, you won't like Humphries. His technique needs work, but Humphries is athletic enough and nasty enough to give you a good foundation. He doesn't always show great bend and relies on his athleticism to recover from leaning into defenders. If he can't correct his body lean, he'll struggle to handle power rushers in the NFL. Now, this is all pretty true. This all carried into the NFL, but not necessarily in a way that would have harmed his starting opportunities. And we'll get to that in a moment. He has an impeccable record when on the field, but I think that he shows a little bit more weakness towards speed rushers than power rushers. I think that what he does against power rushers is he does allow penetration into the backfield, but Patrick Mahomes will be able to deal with that. I'll get to this in a moment, but he has what I think is an elite second anchor. So coming off the ball, you get hit, that's the first anchor. The power rusher then moves you backwards. You are moving your feet as an offensive lineman. How well do you kick back, set that second anchor? In my opinion, he is elite at doing that. Now, here's the guys. This is super exciting, and it's not necessarily the most inept comparison in the world. Pro comparison, Tyron Smith from the Dallas Cowboys. If you remember, so Tyron Smith is an absolute beast. I don't think that Humphries is as physical as Tyron Smith. I don't think that Humphries is necessarily, he's certainly not as effective as Tyron Smith. I think you can look at Humphries' game, however, and see shades of Tyron Smith. A guy so Tyron Smith looks like a transformer. If you look at his arm length, if you look at he looks AI generated. If you look at his body proportions, and Humphries is not that freakish, but I think maybe if you took Humphries' skill set and put it into the freakish Tyron Smith body, perhaps he would have been more heralded than he is. The article on him as a prospect finishes up this way. A lean athlete at tackle with big potential, DJ Humphries is similar to Tyron Smith in upside, athleticism, and playing style. Not in power, however. Now, going into that draft, he measured in at 6'5", 307 pounds, with 33 and 5/8 inch arms. That's a good arm length. 33 is sort of the floor of where you want to see with an offensive tackle. Reportedly, that is sort of where Andy Reid likes to have offensive tackles, and a bare minimum is in the 33-inch range. Also, 10-inch hands, good size on the hands. Confoundingly, a 5'1", 240-yard dash. When you see him on the field, he moves like a guy that's right around that 5-second flat mark. So, yeah, it's just a 40-yard dash. Yeah, it's just 12 100ths of a second, but he really does look like a 5 flat guy. 31-inch vertical leap. A decent vert, like I said in the earlier video on this subject, but you would hope with a guy who was just 307 pounds that maybe he would offer a little bit more explosiveness in that department. 8'8" broad jump, 26 reps on the bench press. That's a pretty good number, that especially for a guy who has nearly 34-inch arms, especially for a guy who was right around the 300-pound mark, 305-pound mark. Now, as a pro, what has he done? All 98 games for which he was available, he was a starter. Going all the way back to 2016, his rookie season, he was available for 13 games, and he started 13 games. The big knock on Humphries is an intense injury history, including the injury from which he is working his way back right now, a knee injury. You're looking at a guy who, if he is 100%, is going to be good for the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's look at the snap counts themselves. Even last season, he played 925 snaps for the Arizona Cardinals. He was a right tackle as a rookie, listed at offensive lineman his final season in Arizona, but all of that beautiful space in between where he was listed as a left tackle, the 2019, 2020, and 2021 runs, he went over 1,000 reps of football. If you go back to 2018, there were 3 consecutive seasons, 18, 19, and 20, where he played 100% of the snaps for which he was available, which means there was not a snap taken by the offense in a game that he played that he was not on the field. In 2021 and 2022, this fell to just 99%. However, he missed games in 21 and 22 and ended last season injured, and he will be returning from that, playing only 15 games last year, but still crossing 900 offensive reps with 925 offensive reps. Also, you're looking at a guy, his final season in Arizona, he played 0 special teams, but prior to that, he was a contributor on the special teams squads. I do not expect him to contribute on special teams here. Now, let's get into a little bit of analysis for the Kansas City Chiefs as far as what this pick means. Number one, I don't think that this is an abandonment of Wanya Morris or Kingsley Suamataia. This is an all-in move on trying to win a 3rd consecutive Super Bowl. There are 2 places on the field right now that led directly to the loss to the Buffalo Bills. Or maybe not directly to, but the two places that you can really point your finger is left tackle, where the Kansas City Chiefs have struggled, and second cornerback. Now, here we have DJ Humphries being signed to play that left tackle spot. I think that this is not the greatest sign in the world for Wanya Morris or Kingsley Suamataia, so obviously you can read something into that, but how much can we read into that? I don't know. This is selling out to win the Super Bowl. Were this not an absolutely historic situation where the Kansas City Chiefs were going for 3 consecutive Super Bowls, would Brett Veach, Andy Reid, and the Kansas City offense be tempted to let the youngins ride out the season? I believe so. I think that would be so how much experience do you get on Sundays versus the rest of the week? Obviously, the king portion, the prime portion, to stray away from the pun I was about to make, the prime portion of experience comes from Sunday activities, live fire from an opponent. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs are presented the opportunity here to allow a lot of experience for their young tackles, Wanya Morris and Kingsley Suamataia, and I would add Ethan Driscoll, who may have been the the contingency plan had Wanya Morris come out against the Bills. You have the opportunity for those guys to sit out and not harm the team. Right? You have the opportunity for those guys to learn a lot, not most of what they would learn taking reps on Sundays, but a lot during the practice week. The next thing to talk about here, guys, this is a very high upside player. This is a guy who can potentially be elite at his position. When we look backwards so this year we have had subpar play pretty much the entire time. I think Wanya gets a passable grade. I think that Kingsley Suamataia's first game, he did respectably, but for the most part, this season has been subpar for the Kansas City Chiefs at the left tackle position. When you go to last season, Donovan Smith was, at best, a par player for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, being a par player for the Kansas City Chiefs, if you think back, we didn't really complain a whole lot about Donovan Smith. Now, part of that is because that Jawaan Taylor on the right side was drawing all of the flags and all of the ire in that way, but we did not complain terribly much about Donovan Smith. So if that's what the offense can do with a passable player as their left tackle, DJ Humphries, if he is 100%, can be elite. He will have elite reps. I don't know that we ever got an elite rep from Donovan Smith. I think that we have had elite reps from Wanya Morris in the running game. I don't know that we have had a single, to my knowledge, to my memory, we have not had a single elite rep from Wanya Morris in the passing game. And Kingsley Suamataia has not given any elite reps in the regular season for the Kansas City Chiefs to date. Now, going on to scouting DJ Humphries, going on to what it was that I was able to see from the film that I watched in between publishing the video on what it was that publishing the video on potentially signing DJ Humphries and preparing a video that we actually signed DJ Humphries is this. If he is 100%, he will immediately have the best kick step on the roster. Not Wanya Morris, not Kingsley Suamataia, not Jawaan Taylor, not Ethan Driscoll. No one on this roster will have a better kick step, that first step off the snap, than DJ Humphries. I won't say it's an elite kick step. It is a prototypical kick step. If you were to build the best passing, not pass game, but best passable offensive lineman you could think of, If you were to create a Madden player and make them 82 all the way down, that's the kick step that player would have. It's just right on the money. It is just right there where you need to be. Moving on from that, that kick step alone will make Mahomes' subconscious much easier on passing downs. Will allow Mahomes, whether he wants to admit it or not, whether we want to admit it or not, whether we want this to be true or not, something has been off with Patrick Mahomes. If I were to throw money on the table as to what that is, you would imagine it would be happy feet. Happy feet looks different with Patrick Mahomes. He does not look like he has happy feet. So the analysis, the sort of diagnosis for what is wrong with Patrick Mahomes has not often landed on happy feet. But Patrick Mahomes does not have standard happy feet. Patrick Mahomes does not have to have a set base to rocket the ball 50 yards downfield. So even something like happy feet from Patrick Mahomes is going to look different. Moving on, DJ Humphries is able to reach the second level in blocking without question, and he is able to wall off defenders even at that level. He's very good at So one of the things that I've talked a lot about Travis Kelce and how he has improved in the blocking game is he's very good at walling off defenders. He doesn't have to be devastating. He doesn't have to pancake anybody. He never has to be Trey Smith. And that's good because that's not Travis Kelce's game. Humphries is just as good. Well, obviously he's better, but just as good for his position group. There are different expectations on offensive linemen than there are on tight ends, obviously. He is just as good at his position group at walling off defenders, which, no, is not a devastating block, but it's effective. It's very effective, and that guy cannot make the tackle. Humphries is not just able to do that to defensive ends. He's able to do that at the second level. One thing I will... So, like I said earlier, he has a devastating second anchor drop. That is so useful when you are facing power rushers in the NFL. That is so useful because even if it's hanging up that defensive end, that edge player for a half a second is massive. And he's able to set his feet, dig in, and at times extend his arms, that's elite stuff. Now, here's the thing on the footwork. Here's the way I'll say it. His footwork isn't always elite. If you're going by the numbers, if you're going by the sort of paint by numbers approach to playing offensive tackle in the NFL, his footwork itself is not always elite. But his feet pretty much are. What does that mean? He will not have his drop T, right? That drop foot instead of this way being this way perfectly as you have to have it. He doesn't have all of the best stances that you will ever see, etc., etc. But his feet are effective. His feet don't necessarily do the 100% coached thing, but they're always moving. If it's a running play, he's always moving forward. If it's a passing play, he's always got them planted in order to stop an oncoming rusher. It is his footwork is not paint by numbers. The results are the Mona Lisa. So, or can be. I'll say it that way. The number 4 thing here, I think this is important when bringing a player into the locker room at this point in the season. He seems to have been well-liked by coaches. He seems to have been well-liked by the organization. He seems to have been well-liked by teammates. And he seems to have been well-liked by the fan base. So obviously, playing left tackle, very difficult to be liked by the fan base. Just keep that in mind. The next thing to talk about here is this. who has to leave because of this? I think that he's going to be signed to the active roster from day one, and because of that, someone is going to be cut for the signing of DJ Humphries. I think we have to start looking at a lot of fan favorites. Is it going to be Carson Steele? Carson Steele likely passes through waivers. You can get him on your practice squad. Is it going to be Ethan Driscoll, the guy that I have championed for a long time because he's just one of the last guys on the roster and he plays the same position as the guy that was just signed? I think he passes through waivers, and I think you sign him to the practice squad. Is it going to be someone like Mike Caliendo, who does not have maybe has the lowest upside on the roster, maybe has the lowest upside of all of the offensive linemen? I think he's got a good floor. I think he's absolutely an NFL player. Maybe he has the lowest upside. Is it going to be CJ Hansen, a guy who has not even had, I don't believe, any special teams reps to this point in the young season? Hunter Nourzad at least gets on there in this special teams capacity. So you're looking at some players that are popular amongst fans and I think have futures in the NFL. It's just the way the cookie crumbles at this point in the season. The number 6 thing to consider here, which is kind of a funny thing to think about, I don't know if there are, I think this is true. If he performs well, he will earn a large contract. That's absolutely true. If he performs well and he signs that large contract somewhere else going into next season, I don't believe it matters what percentage of the regular season he plays for the team. He will likely earn the Kansas City Chiefs a compensatory pick. That might be Joshua Uche and DJ Humphries brought in late in the season that end up earning the Chiefs compensatory picks, something which is going to be very important for the Kansas City Chiefs as they attempt to rebuild their roster from another season after which they are likely to draft late, if not last, in each round. The next thing I want to talk about is just this. Humphries is one of those guys who has a super high ceiling and reached the really pretty good level. Like I said earlier, oftentimes what that does with the fan base is makes you public enemy number one because they wanted to see you be so much more than you've been. Sometimes what it actually is with a guy who has elite tools but becomes pretty good. I believe he's a one-time Pro Bowler. A guy who has elite tools and becomes pretty good. What that oftentimes means is they could have been elite and they just weren't in the right place for everything to click. Maybe there was bad coaching. Maybe there was bad game plans. Maybe there's a bad supporting cast and that makes them look worse than they really are, etc. No matter what it is, sometimes those, because it's a difficult position to be in, to have such high expectations, for people to expect so much of you. Sometimes what it is that elite player is hiding around inside that athlete. But the game plan was not good enough to execute. But the supporting cast, not good enough to do their job, so now you have to overcompensate. But the coaching itself was so bad that you were constantly having to play from behind, and when you're a left tackle and your team is playing from behind, the opposing defense is just trying to tee off on you and whatever it is that you were trying to hold on and do as an offensive player. The Kansas City Chiefs have the most elite of elite quarterbacks. The Kansas City Chiefs have the most elite of elite head coaches. I think their offensive line coach is elite. I think that the situation in which they will find themselves from a score deficit is going to be one of the best in football. I think DJ Humphries, if he is healthy, if he is in shape, is going to be coming to a place where he has every opportunity to start. He will have every opportunity to excel, and he could make the offensive line better than it was last season at any point with Donovan Smith, with Wanya Morris, any point at all. So now you're looking at a situation where the Chiefs' offensive line could be better than the one that won the Super Bowl last year, where the wide receivers, I think, are probably overall a better unit than the one that won the Super Bowl last year. DeAndre Hopkins, maybe not as explosive or fast as Rashee Rice at this point in his career, but Mahomes is learning where he can and can't throw it to him, and he can pretty much throw it anywhere. Xavier Worthy, I think, is, if nothing else, scarier than Marquez Valdes-Scantling to opposing defenses. That's pretty good. I think that 1 through 5, the wide receivers on this year's team, are better than last year's that won the Super Bowl. The running back position, when Isaiah Pacheco comes back, will be Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. That's better than anything the Chiefs had last year. Jerick McKinnon struggled last season. Now you have the entire offense that might be unit for unit better than it was last year. We'll know if the struggles that Patrick Mahomes is facing are actual struggles or if it was something that was just chalked up to that left tackle being subpar. The defense still has some work to do, but I think there is the potential that it could be as good moving forward as last season, getting Charles Omenihu back. That number 2 cornerback position is a little bit weak. We know that. Sometimes that takes a little bit of time to gel. Sometimes that takes a little bit of time to learn your own players' weaknesses and be able to scheme over them. So this could be an absolute monster of a pickup for the Kansas City Chiefs. That's all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more Kansas City Chiefs content in the future. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.